working on desensitization and counter conditioning with Murphy. Murphy has developed a fear of the blinds. He gets upset if he hears them rattling. He gets really upset if I try to close the blinds. And since July the 4th is coming up, I'd like to be able to close the blinds when the fireworks start without scaring Murphy. So the desensitization part is that instead of moving the blinds enough that it scares Murphy, I try to move them very slightly, enough that he notices, but not enough so that he gets upset. We start at a level that keeps him below threshold. And by below threshold, I mean that he's not barking or running around like he normally does. As you can see, his tail is wagging. He's not running away from the blinds, but he is noticing the blinds. And I slowly increase in tiny increments how much I move the blinds. That's the desensitization part. Eventually I want to be able to close the blinds without Murphy getting upset. The counter conditioning part is pairing treats with the blinds. The movement of the blinds has to happen first and then the treat. So that way the blinds predict food, so hopefully we change his feelings about the blinds. If I were to do food then blinds, it could make him dislike the food. And for counter conditioning to work well, you want to find a food that the dog really likes but doesn't get any other time, or at least often. And right now we're doing goat cheese. It all depends on the dog on what he or she might find very tasty. But normally you want something better than dried wheat biscuits. Unless, of course, that's where your dog goes wild for. And it doesn't always have to be food. If you have a dog that's crazy about tug or fetch, you could let the scary blinds predict a fun game. But you have to be careful. You don't want the dog to start feeling bad about the game. You might see the game as a predictor of the scary blinds and start hating tug or fetch. And I probably won't get all the way into a session where I'm able to move the blinds all the way over today. We're going to try to build it up over time. There's no need to push him, no need to rush him. Some people think that if a dog is afraid of something, you should force them to face their fears. This is called flooding. And occasionally flooding might work. In most cases, flooding will sensitize a dog rather than desensitize. For instance, if I know he's afraid of the blinds, I could put him on a leash and hold him right by the blinds while I move them very loudly back and forth while he fights and screams and complains. And would that make him feel better about the blinds? There's a slight chance he could get over it, but more likely it could make him more afraid. And there's just no reason to put that type of stress on your dog. Especially a dog like Murphy, who's already very sensitive and very shy. Murphy was an urban feral puppy who went into a shelter and lived 8 years there. And the shelter was noisy and crowded, and he's very sensitized to a lot of sounds that bother other dogs. Now that was a little bit too much. You notice how he jerked his head and his tail has gone down. So we've probably done enough for today. Oh, his tail came back up. But we're going to take a break right here. I'm not going to play with the blinds anymore for now. And one thing about counter conditioning, when the blinds stop moving, then the food goes away. So that way, hopefully after a while, Murphy will start saying, when you're gonna move the blinds so I get more cheese. There are a lot of good books on counter conditioning and desensitization. One of my favorite is Kathy Sadeo's DVD, Does Pavlov Ring a Bell? Can be purchased on Dog Glass.